Yeah, so we have a child after Ezra. So our, rainbow baby, whatever that means. And that was probably the toughest year of my life. And so almost a year exactly, we went from Ezra's birthday is August the 12th, 2016. And our fourth child, Nora, was born August 28th, 2017. So almost exactly a year apart. And that was the shittiest year, probably of my life, and one of the most wonderful as well. That you can imagine, you're anticipating this new baby and all the joy and excitement that comes with that. And the last time you tried it didn't go so well. And I thought, I'm dealing with this really well, I'm doing good. Started to see a therapist, talked a lot with my wife about all the anxieties that come along with that. And at the start of summer, I was working quite a bit, and we're only a couple months until this next baby and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm rocking that. Like, I'm doing good. I'm managing this anxiety. Like, we got this other one coming. We're preparing the kids because at the end of the day, you just don't know, right? And a couple weeks into the summer, we go away on vacation, and all of a sudden, I start getting these spots on my back. Thinking, oh, it's probably just some sort of allergic reaction or something like that, and just kind of take some Benadryl throughout our vacation, and then when we get back, my wife's like, "You're going to see the doctor," and so I did. And my doctor basically said, "You're an idiot. You have shingles. Like, you're probably in a lot of pain and have been for a few weeks." And I was like, "Yeah, I just kind of ignored it." And she's like, "Well, you're an idiot. You have shingles." And so, I thought I was dealing well with it, and apparently not doing as well as I thought. I think in hindsight, and especially as we got closer to the actual date where our fourth child was going to be born, we had a scheduled C-section like a couple weeks before, just because my wife's pregnancy was considered high risk because we had lost Ezra, and so we had the gift of being able to have midwives and an OB as well, which is huge and was wonderful. As we got closer to Nora's scheduled C-section, I think the biggest thing that helped me was just from a spiritual side of things. I think really around just knowing I'm not in control of this, and really, there's absolutely nothing I can do to make this child alive or not. There's nothing that my wife can do to, have a living child or not. And there's just zero control in it. And so there's this like spiritual surrender almost that happened, especially in those days before, where it was just kind of this prayer of, I don't know what's going to happen here. And at the end of the day, I just have to trust that whatever happens is going to happen for whatever reason it's going to happen. Which doesn't make it easier, I can tell you that. One of the things I wasn't really expecting is kind of the guilt of another child. That you hold this new child and your heart is just so overflowing with this newfound love that you didn't even realize you had in you. And there's a certain level of guilt that comes along with it of, am I trying to replace the one that I lost? I remember going to Ezra's grave. I think it was probably the beginning of summer, so like shortly before Nora was born, and just like breaking down and being like, I'm so sorry, like, that this is happening. Yeah. But there's this weird kind of holding that you do almost all the time now of, this is really hard and this is really beautiful, and it's all happening at the same time, which is really weird, and it's really messed up, and it's really hard to explain and to understand. Our living kids have all been teaching us things as they've kind of grown, right? Whereas Ezra, it feels like he taught us a lot all of a sudden in a really short period of time. and continues to as time goes on. I mean, it's only been 3 years, and it's been like, holy cow, it's been 3 years, right? Like, and so the amount, like, the person I was before Ezra is a completely different person, and not because that person before was bad or not good or anything. It's just different. Even now, one of the things that we casually ask people all the time is, so how many kids do you have? And how do you answer that, right? Do you answer that with, I have 4 kids? Do I? And then they say, wow, what are the ages? Oh, they must all be in school. It's like, well, yeah, they all would be. Or do you say, oh, I only have 3 kids. And then like a little piece in you is like, but you actually have 4. So a friend of mine, he lived in South Africa for a while, and he said what they do in there, at least what his experience was, is that people would say, hi, I'm so and so. I have 4 children, 3 living, and I thought, oh, that's a beautiful way to do that. And yet, in like today's culture, it's so hard because we don't like suffering, we don't like grieving, we don't like loss or talking about it. And so, you get looks when, if you're in the grocery store and they're like, oh, how many kids do you have? Oh, I have 4 kids, but 3 are living. And they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And like, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to, like, I'm just trying to get my groceries, man. Like, get out of here. Right? And so you're almost expected to a certain extent to kind of say, like, put people back at ease when all of a sudden they're uncomfortable because of your story. And I think there's a certain level of truth in that. I think there's a certain level of like, that's a good idea, in the sense of like, I'm not actively going out and trying to make people feel uncomfortable. And to a certain extent, is it my responsibility that, you're uncomfortable? Not really. And so I can't take ownership for that either. And so I think there's a certain level of freedom within that of, at the end of the day, I think it's my choice whether or not I say I have 4 kids with 3 are living, or 4 kids or 3 kids, or whatever that might look like, that, I have to do what's true for me in that moment. And if that makes someone else uncomfortable, so be it. I'm open to have a conversation about that. But at the end of the day, does that mean that I have to sacrifice my comfort for yours? I don't think so. I think if there's anything that, I can impart, I think everyone's story is different. So everyone's going to have a different journey when it comes to working through grief. And I think that's one of the important reasons for just having that open communication with your partner, with your spouse. I know one of the things that Gina and I did at the very end of every single day was this check-in of basically the question of, how's your heart today? And how are you doing? And where are you at? Every single day. And I think we did that for probably the first 8 months, 9 months. And every now and then, we still do it, 3 years later, where difficult things are coming up. And the question, my wife usually asks it first, to be honest, is, how's your heart today, Jason? Which I know, that's code for tell me what's going on. I know you're hiding something, or you're dealing with something or processing something. And I'd love to come on this journey with you. And so I think that communication, I think, is one of the most important things that couples can do, especially in light of losing a child or a loved one. That communication is absolutely everything. I think the other thing is taking time for yourself. When you're walking beside your kids that are going through this grief journey, your partner, whether it's your wife or your husband or whomever, making sure that you take time for yourself within that as well, and that it's okay to not be all things to all people. You're only one person. You can only do so much, and you've been impacted by this too. And so what does it look like to, take time for yourself, whatever that looks like, whether that's, going for a run, or going out with a friend, or playing music, or going to a therapist, or whatever that looks like, just taking that time for you so that you can be in the best place, so that you can help those that you love around you as well. So that's it for me. My name is Jason Dykstra. You can follow me over at my blog, theycallmedad.ca, or if you're on the social medias, you can follow me at JasonDYK pretty much anywhere, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Facebook, I guess we also have a They Call Me Dad page as well. Anyways, all those links and things like that will be down in the description below. So make sure that you hit subscribe so that you get more quality content from Mabel's.